A brutal snowstorm traps a single dad and his little girl high in the mountains. When the power fails and the world outside turns to ice, a stranger from a world of skyscrapers is forced into their fragile circle of survival. But neither of them are ready for what this storm will awaken inside them. Before we dive into the story, make sure to hit the subscribe button and like the video and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Now, let's jump into the story. Snow erased the sky as Nate Harrison guided the rental SUV up the mountain road. His daughter, Lily, slept in the back seat with a purple knit hat tugged to her eyebrows, one mitten still holding a book about winter animals. Cedar Ridge Lodge was supposed to be her 8th birthday treat: Coco, skates, a snowman with a carrot nose. The storm arrived early, turning the switchbacks into a tunnel of gray. Hazard lights pulsed ahead. A black sedan crouched on the shoulder. Nate stopped and stepped into wind that clawed his coat. A woman stood beside the car, hair whipping, phone held toward a sky that didn't care. City boots, tailored coat, stubborn jaw. He recognized her from magazines stacked at the repair shop where he worked nights. Vivian Blackwell, the heiress who had turned a family fund into a clean energy force. "Need a hand?" he asked. "Unless you can negotiate with a blizzard," she said. "Batteries dead, roads closed behind me. I'm heading to Cedar Ridge." "We're going there. Hop in." Pride flickered, then practicality won. "Thank you." Inside, Lily blinked awake. "Are you a snow queen?" she asked, still half asleep. "Not today," Vivian said, and managed a small smile. "Dad's good at snow," Lily added. "He can fix anything." Nate gripped the wheel, feeling the weight of that faith and the quiet joy of it. He had built bunk beds from scrap pine, stretched paychecks, and learned to read the kind of clouds that meant trouble. They crawled forward. Wipers beat a frantic rhythm. The sign for Cedar Ridge appeared glazed in ice. The lodge rose from the white like a ship, windows warm and amber. Inside, the lobby smelled of cedar and cinnamon. A manager with a storm radio said the grid was down past town, and the generators might not last if the fuel truck couldn't get through. "We're consolidating rooms for heat," she said gently. "If you're together, we can put you near the hearth corridor." "We're together for now, Nate." They got a family suite, 2 compact rooms and a fold-out couch. Lily claimed the bed by the window and placed her stuffed fox like a guard. Nate checked vents, blocked drafts with rolled towels, and tested the lantern they were given. Vivian stood at the balcony door, watching the world smudge to slate. When she turned, he noticed a tremor in her hands. "Tea?" he asked. "We brought some." "That would be perfect," she said, the edge in her voice replaced by relief. He boiled water on a travel coil. Because the winter Lily had pneumonia, a nurse taught him that warmth is its own medicine. He passed a mug without brushing her fingers. Respect lives in small spaces. "Thank you," she said. "I'm not used to being the person who needs help." "No one is until it's their turn," he said. The building shivered and the lights dipped, then steadied. Lily looked up. "If the power goes out, can we make shadow puppets?" "We can," Nate said. "And maybe sit near the big fire downstar." "You make fires?" Vivian asked. "I do a lot of things," he said, softening it with a half smile. "Most of them not in magazines." She studied him. Under the armor of headlines, he saw a woman who knew how to count risks and, for once, couldn't control any of them. Lily drew a pine forest and a fox and 3 stick people under falling snow. Nate stepped into the hall to check the emergency stairwell and map the exit. Single fatherhood teaches its own logistics. The generators failed after dinner. The hum cut out. The lights died. Cold slipped through seams you don't notice when life is easy. Voices rose in the corridor. then lowered when someone flashed a light. Nate clicked their lantern on and slipped his backup headlamp over Lily's hat, because fathers pack for nights they hope never come. "Common room," he said, closer to the hearth. They joined the small stream of guests. The lounge's stone fireplace waited like an old friend. Nate worked with the manager to start a safe, steady fire. He showed a college kid how to twist newspaper into starters, and an older couple how to add logs without choking the flame. Someone passed cocoa packets. Wind slapped the windows, wanting in. The circle of people closed ranks. Lily and Vivian sat near the hearth. Heat returned color to Vivian's face. She watched Nate move from task to task without fuss, the kind of leadership that isn't about being seen. It is simply useful. Another tremor rode the frame of the lodge, deeper, a note you feel in your ribs. The south door blew open, and a sheet of snow slid inside. The latch had iced at a bad angle. The manager lunged, slipped. Nate moved. "Stay with Lily," he told Vivian, and launched into the gale. Two guests threw their shoulders beside his. Glass at the top pane sang with a thin crack. Wind roared like a freight train. From Ridge came a low, rolling growl that made the hair rise on his neck. A sound he had only heard in videos you watch once and never forget. "That's not just wind," he said, more to himself than anyone. Vivian met his eyes and understood. She had spent years reading patterns and curve lines that warn of collapse. "Everyone step back from the windows," she called, voice clear and calm. "Bring kids to the interior wall. Stay low." People listened because calm is contagious. Nate and the others forced the door shut, but the growl grew, gathering itself high above the tree line. Lily pressed closer to Vivian, fingers tight around the fox. Vivian crouched to Lily's height and kept her face steady. "Dad?" Lily asked, eyes on Nate. "I'm right here," he said, planting himself between the door and the guests, palms open, breath even. He could smell cold the way you smell metal. He could feel the mountain holding its breath. The room went quiet enough that the fire seemed low. A log popped. Snow hissed at the seam of the door, a whisper of what waited outside. The sound changed, heavy and sure, like a ceiling giving way after years of weight. The floor vibrated, once, twice. "Down," Nate said, level and firm. "Hold on to something." The mountain answered. Snow hit like a freight car, and the windows bowed but held. The avalanche poured past the south side of the lodge, a white river in the dark that shook the beams and then moved on. For a long breath, nobody spoke. The roar faded to a dull growl, and the room exhaled together. "Is it over?" someone whispered. "First wave," Nate said, still crouched with Lily tucked behind him. "We wait a minute." The old stone fireplace kept its shape. The frame had flexed and settled, like a boxer taking a punch and staying on his feet. A manager took a shaky count. Nate joined her, moving row by row, checking faces, touching shoulders, asking if anyone felt dizzy or hurt. When he reached Lily and Vivian, Lily flew into his coat and he wrapped her small cold hands inside his. Vivian's eyes were steady. "You saw it coming," she said. "I listened," he answered. After a minute, the building went quiet in a new way. Nate checked a back corridor and found snow packed knee-deep through a warped exit. He braced it with a folding table and duct tape, then sealed drafts with spare blankets. It would hold. When he returned, Vivian had turned the anxious crowd into a plan. She set a rotation at the hearth, a team to heat water, a pair to read to kids, another to stack luggage along the floor to block cold seeping under doors. She spoke in clean steps and thanked a shy teen when he suggested the luggage idea. People straightened because usefulness feels like heat. Hours crawled. The generators stayed down. The fireplace did the work of the sun. Breath showed when people spoke. Nate gave his tea to an older man. Vivian split a protein bar with Lily and accepted the smaller half only when Lily insisted. Small mercies built a bridge across the room. Near dawn, the wind eased. Silence came in, heavy and good. The radio crackled. The pass had slides. A plow would try by nightfall or morning. Diesel for the generators was stuck beyond the second slide. The lodge would live by fire and blankets for many hours. "We should check upper rooms and ration wood," Nate said. "I'll help," Vivian said. He handed her his spare gloves. She accepted without pride. They blocked drafts, slid a pot under a dormer leak, carried quilts, and found candles and board games. Little wins felt like rescue. In the linen room, Vivian steadied herself on a shelf and closed her eyes longer than a blink. Nate waited. "I'm cold and a little scared," she said. "This is not a room I can control." "Nobody controls weather," he said. "We make good choices and stay close." "Then I'll stay close," she answered. Back in the lounge, Lily wrapped herself in a quilt and announced she was Lily Deluxe, which drew a ripple of laughter that warmed corners the fire could not reach. Nate checked the wood and did quiet math. They could make it tonight if nobody got greedy. Mid-morning, a skier stumbled in, ice in his beard, panic bright in his eyes. "My brother crashed near the North Trail," he said. "Conscious, hurt leg. I marked the spot and came back." The manager went pale. The plow was still far away. Nate asked for the trail map. Vivian stepped beside him. "No one goes alone," she said. 3 people, rope, first aid, hot water, headlamps, radio. We mark the route and promise to come back." Her voice cut through panic. "You can't send guests," the manager said. "We can't leave someone freezing," Vivian replied. She met Nate's eyes. "You lead." He looked at Lily. She bit her lip, then lifted her chin. "Bring him back, Dad." "I will," he said. To Vivian, "You good on snow?" "I can walk a hill," she said. They layered up. Nate tied a rope between them with bowlines and handed Vivian the radio. "Call every 5 minutes. If your voice wobbles, we turn back." "Understood," she said. Outside, the world was white and remade. They moved single file. Rope a promise, following a broken branch planted upright like a flag. Beyond it, a shallow slide had smeared across the trail. Nate probed with a borrowed ski pole and found a firm base, then sent them across one at a time. The brother sat propped against a pine, pale and shivering, his left leg bent wrong below the knee. Relief blew across his face when he saw them. "You came," he breathed. "Of course," Vivian said, kneeling. "We'll splint your leg and get you inside." Her hands. Nate spoke into the radio in clear phrases. "Found subject, adult male, alert, lower leg deformity, pulse fast, skin cool." They built a splint from a broken sign and 2 saplings, padded with scarves, tied with rope. Tiny sips of hot water brought color back to his lips. They rigged a drag using the rope and a tarp. Step by step, they brought him up the slope, across the scraped slide, through the drift, and to the lodge. Lily waited by the threshold, eyes huge but steady. She clapped once, then stood aside. Heat felt like a blessing again. They set the man near the fire, elevated his leg, covered him with quilts, and watched his breathing slow. People exhaled. The rescued man slept under quilts, color slowly returning to his cheeks. The room sagged with relief, the kind that makes people move slower, as if every limb suddenly remembers it's tired. Nate checked the splint once more, then stood and stretched aching shoulders. Vivian pressed a fresh mug of tea into his hands without a word. Gratitude didn't need sound. Lily curled on a couch near the fire. drawing the lodge with thick lines and dots of snow. She had added Vivian between her and Nate, the three of them holding hands. When Nate caught it, she grinned and tried to hide the paper, then decided not to. "We're the snow team," she declared before yawning. Within minutes, she was asleep, pen still in hand. The fire sank to coals. Nate added logs carefully, coaxing flame back without wasting wood. Vivian crouched beside him. "You don't stop," she said. "She's my whole world," he said simply. Vivian's gaze softened. "I wasn't built for families," she said. "Or maybe I never slowed down long enough to try. Maybe you just never found people worth slowing for," he said. She studied him, as if he were an unexpected language. Something cracked outside, sharp as a gunshot. Both of them stood instantly. The sound came again, just ice shedding from a roof corner. But adrenaline laced the air like ozone, and they laughed quietly from the shock of it. By evening, the wind returned in hard bursts, snapping through the trees. Nate spoke with the manager. No plow yet, though the radio promised one was near the pass. Food was thinning. The kitchen was down to dried goods and a stubborn freezer chest. They divided tasks, Nate to ration firewood, Vivian to coordinate meals. The manager to keep the radio alive. Vivian turned the meal assignment into a game, pairing strangers to invent something edible. Someone made oatmeal with cocoa powder and raisins. A kid engineered a grilled cheese on the fireplace grate. Laughter hummed around the hearth, worn but real. Crisis had stripped people down to simple kindness, and somehow it fit better than polish. Night brought stillness so deep they could hear the building creak with its own age. Nate checked every corridor with a lantern, boots soft on carpet. When he returned, Vivian sat awake near the coals, blanket around her shoulders, watching snow stripe the windows. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I keep thinking about boardrooms," she said. "The endless rush, how none of it matters right now." "Maybe it never mattered as much as they told you," he said, sitting across from her. "You just got used to the noise." "You say it like you've never wanted more," she said. "I did," he admitted. Then Sarah got sick. More stopped being bigger things. More became keeping Lily's shoes dry and her heart steady. Vivian nodded slowly, like a puzzle clicking. "I thought achievement meant safety. Turns out, safety is knowing someone will come back for you." They sat in quiet after that. Not awkward, just honest. Outside, the snow eased to lazy flakes. Nate noticed her eyes flick to Lily, asleep under her coat, and soften further. They drifted to sleep in chairs by the fire. When dawn came, the radio crackled alive. The plow had cleared the first slide. The convoy would push through the second in hours. People murmured like thawed rivers. Bags were zipped, blankets folded. Nate felt the room start to breathe toward leaving. He found Lily by the big window, tracing hearts in the condensation. "We'll be home tonight," he said. "I liked it here," she said. "Even when it was scary, especially then." "Because you weren't alone," he said. Vivian stood near the desk, phone buzzing with service for the first time in days. Her face tightened as she read messages, a reflex of the old world sliding back over her. He watched it, then turned to tend the fire, giving her the dignity of not staring while she rebuilt her armor. "The board's waiting," she said quietly after a while. "Flights, statements, media. They want me in New York tomorrow." "And do you want that?" he asked. She hesitated, and that was her answer. "The storm's ending," she said, half to herself. "Maybe just outside," he said. "Inside's quieter than it's been in years." They joined the line of guests as the plow engines growled closer, deep and certain. The machines appeared first as sound, then as yellow shapes carving a path through white. People cheered. Someone cried. The convoy rolled into the lot, heaters rumbling, diesel cutting the cold. Nate packed their few things. Lily stuffed the fox into her coat and slipped her hand into Vivian's without asking. Vivian didn't pull away. The three of them walked out through air so clear it looked carved from glass. At the lot, engines idled. The road wound down the mountain, dark ribbon on white canvas. Nate buckled Lily into the SUV. She yawned so hard her hat slipped over one eye. Vivian stood with her phone in her hand, not using it, watching the snow still drift from the pines like feathered shaken loose. "So this is the part where you go back to skyscrapers," Nate said lightly. "And you go back to real life," she said. "This was real," he said. "The rest is just schedules." She smiled, small and fierce. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe I need to change which part I call real." The plow cleared the final bend. The path home waited, black and shining. They drove down through a world remade, snow stacked high on the guardrails, pines bowed low like sentries. The road was narrow, carved just wide enough by the plows, but it felt like freedom. Lily hummed softly in the back seat, clutching her fox, eyelids heavy. Vivian sat quiet, phone dark in her lap, gaze on the pale sunlight breaking through shredded clouds. The storm had passed, yet something lingered between them, a current not bound by weather. Halfway down the switchbacks, Nate stopped at a turnout overlooking the valley. The air was sharp, clean enough to taste. Lily slept on, her breath fogging the window. Vivian stepped out beside him, boots crunching ice. They stood without speaking. Far below, roads threaded toward towns, lights blinking faintly through haze. Civilization, schedules, noise. "When I was 12, Nate said, "my dad drove me up here to see the first snow. Told me storms strip things down to what matters." "What mattered for you?" she asked. "Family," he said. "Even if it's just two people in a drafty apartment trying to make rent, it's enough." She nodded. "I spent years thinking enough was something you could buy. Turns out it's something you hold, if you're lucky." He glanced at her. The hard lines of boardroom armor were gone, replaced by something quieter, almost fragile. "You'll go back," he said. "They'll pull at you." "I know," she said. "But maybe I'll pull back this time." They returned to the car. The world grew busier as they descended. Cleared roads, gas stations open, trucks roaring by. By the time they reached town, the sun was out, glaring off melted roofs. The lodge belonged to another planet now. Nate dropped Vivian at the train station. The platform smelled of coffee and diesel. Her car would be waiting in the city. Her life would be waiting. Lily stirred when Vivian opened the door, blinking against daylight. "Bye," she murmured. Vivian crouched, smoothing Lily's hat. "You were brave," she said. "You made the storm feel smaller." Lily smiled drowsily. "You made it feel warm." Vivian's throat tightened. She looked up at Nate. "Thank you for not letting fear win." "Thank you for not staying in the corner," he said. "You stepped up. People follow that." "They followed you," she said. "I just tried to keep up." A horn blared down the track. The trains slid into view, silver and certain. Vivian stood, hesitated. "Maybe when this is over," she said. "When everything stops spinning." "Storms always end," he said. "Sometimes they just leave things in better places." She held out her hand. He shook it. Then she surprised them both by leaning in, pressing her forehead briefly to his shoulder, as if anchoring herself. Then she was gone, boots ringing on steel steps, coat flaring like a banner. The train carried her toward the skyline. Nate watched until it vanished, then drove Lily home. The apartment was small, warm from the sun baking through west windows. She curled on the couch, asleep before her boots were off. He stood in the quiet, letting it settle. The steady hum of the fridge, the distant bark of the dog. Simple, solid things. Days passed. Life resumed. School lunches, job sites, bedtime stories. Still, the lodge lived in the corners of his mind. The crack of ice, the hush after the avalanche, Vivian's eyes steady in firelight. Some nights, he caught Lily drawing 3 figures in the snow again, always hand in hand. A week later, his phone buzzed while he packed her lunch. A photo filled the screen. Vivian on a skyscraper terrace, hair whipped by wind, holding a cup of coffee. The caption read, simply, "Storm's over." Then, thinking of the snow team. He smiled, heart tightening in the good way. He typed back, "Storm's over here too." Then he hesitated, added, "You ever need quiet? We have plenty." Sent it before he could second guess. That night, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, building a paper snow fort. "Is she coming back?" she asked. "Maybe," Nate said, "if she wants." "I hope she does," Lily said, focused on her tiny paper walls. "It's nicer with her." Nate thought about the lodge, about strangers becoming allies, about the sharp line where fear becomes trust, about how storms strip things down, yes, but sometimes they clear enough space to build something new. Winter held on for weeks, but the days inched longer, light stretching into cold evenings. On the first warm afternoon of March, Nate and Lily walked to the park. Meltwater ran under the snow like hidden laughter. As they crossed the street, a black sedan eased to the curb. The door opened. Vivian stepped out, not in heels or city armor, but boots and a wool coat, a paper bag in her hand. She looked unsure for the first time he had ever seen, and also certain in a deeper way. "I brought cocoa," she said. Lily's face lit. "You came back! If we don't survive." Vivian said softly, eyes on Nate, "I want you." The world paused, then clicked forward into something that felt real. Nate smiled, slow and steady. "We survived," he said. "Now we find out what living looks like." Lily grabbed both their hands, tugging them toward the playground. Snow glittered like broken stars in the grass. Above them the sky was sharp and blue and wide open. In the end, their storm became more than survival. It became proof that even in a fractured world, strangers can become family when hearts choose courage over fear. If this story moved you, imagine what could change if we carried that same spirit into our everyday lives. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Thank you for watching, and stay brave out there.